Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. No stream this weekend. I don't know if some of you watched my short that I put out a few days ago, but I'm actually away for the weekend. Actually, I'm away for nearly 2 weeks away. So I will be back next weekend and I'll be available for the next race after the Japanese Grand Prix. But I thought I'd do a quick video just to summarise on my thoughts. Despite the fact that I'm away, I have been keeping an eye on what's been going on in the Japanese Grand Prix. And the interesting thing was the McLarens doing very well. Verstappen putting a couple of very quick laps in, and is in a league of his own. I think whatever happens in the race tomorrow morning, I'm recording this on Saturday night, so whatever happens on the race on a Sunday morning, I think no one's going to pay too much attention about what's going on at the front of the grid in terms of Verstappen. I see Verstappen going off into the distance, even if the McLarens can put up a temporary fight early on. I think McLaren's strategy is going to be about getting second and third place, getting both drivers onto the podium, and I think they can. I think they've got the car to do it. So they may look at it and say, you know what, if Max Verstappen's going off to the distance, listen, let's not push too hard. Let's save our tyres. Let's race our strategy and get both cars onto the podium. And I could see a scenario where that plays out. Sorry, I'm just having a little bit trying to do it on my phone here. In terms of the McLaren's pace, now I said, and you can go back and you can watch my videos. I might even, when I get home back to my studio, might even post the clip where I clearly say about the McLarens they need to be the team to watch out for the rest of the season. And this is why, because every time they've produced an upgrade, it has worked. What does that mean? Well, it means they've understood their car. I said this just before Silverstone, in fact, and after Silverstone, that the cars that have improved the most are the McLarens, and that tells me that they know their strengths and their weaknesses on the car, because every time they bring an upgrade, the car works, and it works better. In contrast, you see that with the Aston Martins and the Mercedes and the Ferraris. They've all had upgrades and so on. Ferrari's recent upgrades have done them a little bit of help, made them a little bit more competitive, but nowhere near are the advantages that the McLarens have made. McLarens are essentially, I mean, if it weren't for Sergio Perez, the McLarens could, or so I should say, if it weren't for Max Verstappen, then McLarens arguably may have even been the quickest car as a collective group. So that to me says that they know what their car is, and it also means that they know what to look out for next season. They'll be the team at testing in 2024 that I'll be keeping an eye on the most, because of the potentially that if they understand their car, next season's car will be just an evolve from this season's car, and so on. So we'll have to keep an eye on how the McLarens are going to do over the next few weeks. And also with the Aston Martins, a lot of people have noticed they've really dropped back over the last sort of several weeks or so. And the reason why is quite simple. There's a budget cap, and that means the team is limited to how much it can spend on its car throughout the year. So if you spend lots of money over the pre-season building your car, and you don't leave yourself with much of a budget come the start of the season for upgrades, that is obviously going to cause an issue in terms of how much you can develop your car. In other words, what Aston Martin done is they put all their eggs in one basket, and they put all of their budget, or the majority of their budget, early on into the car to have a quick car at the start of the season, and it worked. They had arguably the second quickest car at the start of the season, but by doing so meant that they had a very light development program throughout the rest of the season, and that has obviously transpired, and as you can see the results in that, which is a good car to start with. But other teams, they saved themselves a little bit back. They weren't as quick as the Aston Martin to start with, but by the time they learned a bit more about their car, understood their car, you look at McLaren for example, and they kept enough back, the McLaren, to say, look, we might not have a good car to start with, but we're going to leave ourselves with plenty of room to understand our car. Unless we understand our car, we can make it better, and that seems to have worked much better for the McLarens. But obviously they are fifth in the constructors, and there's a big gap up to fourth place to the Aston Martins, a very big gap. But they've got a car, they've got the design, they've got some context of which to go on to next season. Another team worth noting, the Mercedes, they had a few upgrades they brought to Singapore, which they said won't make so much difference. Singapore should make a bit more difference in Japan. Hasn't really worked. Perhaps it's a setup thing there for whatever reason, but that sums up the Mercedes this year. I think it's just a car that's ready for the bin, frankly, and they've said that their next season's car is going to be much more evolved. It's going to be totally different. Some will say, well, that's a good thing. Personally, I look at it and think, well, so you're starting next season with a new car, whereas everyone else or the majority of other teams have enhanced and evolved their current car. McLaren, for example, McLaren's going into next year arguably with an advantage, unless Mercedes have got some sort of rabbit up their sleeve which are going to pull out of their hats, so we'll have to see how the Mercedes progress. But for me, the fact that they're saying we're going to have a brand new car next year, it doesn't fill me with optimism, because they're starting essentially with a new car, i.e. they're starting from point zero, whereas most other cars are just, or most other teams are just evolving their current cars. Anyway, I'd like to know what your thoughts are on that, and also let me know in your comments who is going to win the battle of the best of the rest, should we call it? Because I think it's, like I said, it's difficult to see Max Verstappen not winning in Japan. So if we're going to go best of the rest from second place onwards, who is that going to be? Is that going to be the McLarens? Do you think that the Ferraris or the Mercedes have got something in their race pace up their sleeve, perhaps some strategic advantage that they will be able to give? Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will be back for the next race for a live stream. Also, just very quickly on that point, you might have noticed on my YouTube channel, not my Facebook channel, but my YouTube channel, I got halfway through the race, through the last race in Singapore, the stream just got cut off, and that is because I got a strike. And I'm going to do a separate video about this when I get back, but I got a strike for the audio by F1. F1 essentially asked YouTube to strike off that video because of the audio. However, I have appealed this because F1 do not own the audio of the BBC, which was the audio that was playing. So I have asked to appeal that, but F1, stop being idiots, stop being autocrats. You don't own the audio of the BBC. Anyway, until then, until the next race even, I hope to see you all again soon. Take care.